Jack of all trades, master of none. I used to hate that saying. It always made it seem like the true winners in life were the ones who had mastered a single skill, had a single purpose, a single path. But if you ask me to describe myself, that's who I am, a jack of all trades. At 17 years old, this is my CV. If you look through it, you'll see a little bit of everything. Once I get good at something, I move on to the next thing. I never considered myself particularly good at art. So when I won an art competition, I called it quits. Music, I learned the piano, composed an orchestral piece for my schoolwork, and won the school talent show. Gymnastics, 10 years. Once I mastered the tricks I wanted to learn, I moved on. Scuba diving, certified rescue diver. Sewing, did it, made a dress, a skirt, and some stuffed toys to donate to charity. Technology, built an app for my personal project. If you can think of it, I've probably done some version of it. And yet, for most of my life, I never considered myself particularly exceptional. I just did things. I've always fit the mold of a gifted student, often hitting developmental milestones 6 to 12 months ahead of my peers. I was holding conversations by 18 months old, solving complex puzzles for fun by the time I was 3. And in 5th grade, I had the reading level of a 12th grader. Instead of bedtime stories, I would solve math problems and riddles. I have an excellent memory. My favorite example? I can still remember the taste of my 3rd birthday cake. To this day, if I taste anything similar, I'll recognize it immediately. At family gatherings, I always dreaded the kids' table. Even at 7 years old, I felt it was an insult. I wanted to be a part of the adult conversations, listening on business, politics, and the economy. At 9 years old, I could have explained to you how a loan works or how you should be repaying your credit card. I attribute all of this to one thing: observation. I know. How much can a kid really notice? My go-to story to tell when people ask me this is that I found out my parents were getting divorced months before they told us. How? The music my mom listened to changed. Giftedness doesn't just mean intellectual. Giftedness is about cognitive, emotional, and existential intensity. Not just skill, not just talent. And no, I don't think I'm better than anyone else. In fact, I still struggle with accepting the title of gifted. Trust me, I tried to get out of calling myself gifted for this talk. But being gifted came with its price. Because perfection was expected, I considered anything less a failure. My parents never pressured me. They were proud no matter what, but my own brain demanded perfection. I'll never forget the day I came home from school in tears because I had gotten a red, sad face instead of my usual green, happy face for my behavior. My parents didn't care as long as I had learned from my mistake, but I was devastated. I had failed. And surely, if I had failed, then everyone around me saw me as a failure too. As I grew older, these traits followed me. I could hyper-focus on a project for hours, perfecting every single detail. Yet I only thrived in high-pressure environments, often procrastinating and leaving work to the last minute just to be able to get the adrenaline rush that fueled my best work. I kept detailed to-do lists, not just for organization, but because crossing off a task gave me an unmatched sense of accomplishment. I would write down an already completed task just to be able to cross it off. People assumed I had it all together, naturally brilliant, effortlessly successful. But none of it was effortless. As I got older, life got busier, more overwhelming. Things that were once effortless now started requiring effort. I took that to mean one thing: I was failing. Effort became my enemy. If I had to work hard, then maybe I wasn't as smart as people thought I was. The result? Avoiding work at all costs. I'd barely study, or at least I'd tell people I barely studied. That way, if I did badly, I had an excuse. If I did well, my reputation remained intact. I tried everything, every tip, every trick, every study hack on Instagram. None of it worked. My solution? Pack my schedule even more. Stay busy, keep moving, never slow down. Because if I slowed down, then I might start to feel too much. I became a shark. And sharks, they can never stop swimming, or else they drown. I kept trying to just keep swimming. But eventually, I couldn't keep up anymore. I burnt out. And that's when I was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Everyone around me was shocked. How could someone who appeared so put together struggle with focus, burnout, and executive dysfunction? To me, it was a relief. It wasn't my fault. Be honest, when you think of ADHD, You think of a 7-year-old boy who can't focus, bounces off the walls, and disrupts the classroom, right? That's not always the case. Sometimes it presents as the overachieving student who gets everything done at the last possible second. ADHD is often thought of as just not being able to focus, but it's so much more than that. It's anxiety. It's over-explaining yourself to avoid being misunderstood, and then spiraling because you just fear you made things worse. It's having to repeat a certain action, touching a doorknob, stepping on a certain tile, until it feels just right. It's having to wear your lucky socks to all your exams because somehow they make the difference between passing and failing. In my case, I struggle to sit still, I talk fast, I get overwhelmed, overstimulated, and paralyzed by executive dysfunction. The best way I know to explain executive dysfunction is imagine I'm asking you to place your hand on a hot burner. Physically, you could, but your brain won't let you. Executive dysfunction is similar. I get paralyzed. I can't move even if I wanted to, because everything becomes so overwhelming that I just shut down. People assumed that I had it all together. But this just led to getting stuck in cycles of procrastination. I'd put everything off because switching tasks felt impossible. Even the things that I wanted to do. Take this talk, for example. I was super excited, full of ideas, but also I got overwhelmed, so I put it off for weeks. When you're seen as high functioning, people assume you don't need help. My baseline is most people's maximum capacity. I can take on a lot, but that also means that when I hit my limit, I crash hard. I struggle to say no to things. This talk is the perfect example of that. I agreed to do it, even though I knew it was in the middle of my mock exams. I had 2 exams earlier today, and I have another one tomorrow. I was also in the mountains on an expedition all weekend, leaving me no time to prepare or to study. On top of that, I had 2 medical school interviews last week. Yet, here I am, giving this talk. Neurodiversity is defined as having a brain that works differently. For a long time, it wasn't talked about, at least not in the way that we do now. Let me be clear. Neurodiversity has always existed. The only difference now is that we have the language, the research, and the awareness to understand it. People often think of neurodiversity as a linear spectrum, with high-functioning giftedness on one side and low-functioning ADHD or autism on the other. But it's not a straight line. It's a circle. It's a color wheel, where multiple things can be true at once. And people like me, we're called twice exceptional. Gifted, but also neurodivergent. In my case, my gifted masked my ADHD. For years, I had unknowingly been masking my symptoms with traits that others perceived as gifted. The hyperfocus, a way of battling inconsistent attention. The love for high-pressure situations, a means of generating the dopamine my brain struggled to produce on its own. The packed schedule, my way of channeling my hyperactivity. Would you force a left-handed kid to only write with his right hand? No. So why do we expect neurodivergent people to think like neurotypical ones? Fitting in means changing yourself to match others, while the opposite is belonging, where you are just yourself. That's what's truly important. Not changing yourself to fit into a box, but embracing how your spicy brain works. For years, I tried to fit myself into that box. Eventually, I stopped looking at my ADHD as a disadvantage and started working with my brain instead of fighting against it. I made adjustments, broke tasks into micro steps, had my mom sit with me while I studied as a body double, and most importantly, I embraced the procrastination. I turned it into productive procrastination. I learned that I wasn't broken. I just needed the right tools. One of the most important tools that I learned was one that I had unknowingly started to implement in my life when I decided to turn my ADHD into my superpower. This tool is the psychology of winning. Yeah, I know, the psychology of winning. What every self-help book and successful person swears by. But for me, as a regular person, it was as simple as learning to trust myself. Your thoughts shape your reality, whether positive or negative. If you keep telling yourself you're failing, your brain interprets that as a goal and unknowingly steers your actions in that direction. I've seen this firsthand. Every time I thought I'd fail, my brain worked against me. But if I trusted myself that I could figure it out, I did. It's not magic. Your beliefs determine your outcomes. So change the script. Start telling yourself that you can. Start trusting yourself. People ask me, why do labels matter? Why does everything need a name these days? Labels bring understanding. They bring belonging. They tell you that you're not broken, you're just built differently. Imagine that you're a zebra in a world full of horses. Wouldn't it bring you comfort to know that you're not just a strange horse, you're a perfectly normal zebra? I used to hate the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none. But when I learned the full saying, something inside me healed. Jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than master of one. We are not meant to fit into boxes. We are meant to shape the world in our own way. Neurodiversity isn't something to be fixed. It's something to be understood, harnessed, and embraced. So embrace the chaos, embrace the stripes, embrace the circle, the triangle, or just create your own shape. So what would your shape be?